conspiracy theory has a high chance of being true. The 1975 dismissal of the then Australian Prime Minister, Gow Whittam, by the Governor-General, was actually a British/American backed CIA coup in order to prevent the nationalisation of Australia's mining sector. This is the one I came here to say. But it's so much more than just the mining sector. Whittam was threatening a key part of the Five Eyes in Pine Gap, among other things. It's well known that around this time the CIA was involved in many coups elsewhere, particularly in Latin America. Why would Australia be any different? We had an incredibly progressive Labour government at a time America and Britain were entering the height of their extreme right-wing eras. And it was a government looking to go its own way in the world, and not be so reliant on Anglo-American relations. It's a fact that Governor-General John Kerr was corresponding with the Queen in the lead up to the dismissal, and that contrary to normal government practices they refused to publicize those letters, claiming them to be private. And it is well known that Kerr had a very cozy relationship with the CIA. It's very hard to take the dismissal as anything other than a coup by the American and British intelligence agencies. There's a very high chance that a nuclear test took place by Israel and South Africa in 1979, and that the United States covered it up for political reasons. It's also confirmed that we lost a nuke in a swamp and that old nuclear blueprints are out there. Can't believe nobody has said this already. I'm somewhat suspicious of the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination. Just before the shooting occurred, a police radio call announced an active shooter and car chase on the opposite side of town and requested backup. Lots of backup. Almost all of the cops on duty that day responded, leaving one or two to respond to the King shooting. There was no car chase, no other shooter, and no one ever found out who made that radio call. Certain governments are actively working against environmental legislation because their countries have access rights to resources buried under the Arctic that they want to exploit. Once the ice caps melt, Russia will have a shit ton of farmland once the permafrost in Siberia melts. Worldwide pedophile rings and their involvement in Epstein's murder. I'm not talking about the adrenochrome shit that's just made up bullshit. I believe that Epstein was murdered to cover up larger pedophile rings. Imagine this, you have a deal to expose all your clients and have at least a little bit less strict prison sentence in exchange, and then you just hang yourself in your cell when you have no way of knowing that the cameras are out, when no guards control your cell the way they should. Seems like there are too many coincidences in this one for it to be just a random suicide. I saw some autopsy photos, discussed the matter with my dad, who is an ex-cop who saw a couple of suicide victims, both saving them from the nooses and on the table, and he said that he had never seen anyone with strangling marks in the middle of their neck that wasn't a murder, since most hanging suicide victims have the marks right under their chin. If Epstein survived and still gave out the list, it could have had a couple of added names, but there are pretty big chances that some of his clients might have been involved in other pedophile rings, much larger than what his ring. Shit just doesn't add up. Edit. Some people ask me what is adrenochrome, so TL. Doctor, there is a batshit insane conspiracy theory that rich people torture kids so that adrenochrome is created in their blood and that you can spot an adrenochrome user by bruises near their eyes. I've posted this before. I'm still sure this isn't a case of we wouldn't be that clever. Original Coke. Apparently American Coca-Cola was made with sugar up until the 80s, but they wanted to change to a cheaper ingredient known as HFCS. Not wanting to make the change and have people in an uproar over the change in taste, Coca-Cola made New Coke, which tasted completely different, which did indeed cause criticism. The sneaky part is they said, yep, New Coke is a failure, here's your beloved original Coca-Cola back, except now that Coca-Cola is made with the cheaper HFCS and tastes different to original sugar Coke, but still better than New Coke. I love buying Coke in other countries besides the US. The difference between real sugar and high fructose corn syrup is definitely noticeable. On August 5, 1952, a car came to pick up Samira Mouser in Berkeley, California. The driver opened the door for the world-renowned scientist, who was the first ever female Egyptian nuclear scientist. The 35-year-old was the first woman to earn a doctorate in atomic radiation and the first woman to hold a teaching post at Cairo University thanks to her groundbreaking PhD in atomic radiation in the 1940s. Mouser sat in the backseat as they left the city and headed along the California coast. She had completed her research and was preparing to return to Egypt, but she had received an invitation for a dinner. Driving along the curved cliffs of the Pacific coast, the car suddenly swerved and plummeted 40 feet over the edge, killing her immediately. The driver jumped from the car just before the fall and later disappeared, and the invitation she received to California turned out to be fake. The death of the brilliant young physicist is shrouded in mystery. While no one knows for sure what happened, some suspect that was targeted by Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, to prevent Egypt from acquiring knowledge of nuclear technology, though it has never claimed responsibility. Edit: this is not the first incident from that type. Ramadan was head of the National Radiation Observatory Network at the Egyptian Nuclear and Radiological Regulatory Authority. Egyptian ambassador to Morocco Ashraf Ibrahim said Ramadan felt sick during the conference and went to his room. Shortly after arriving to his room in a hotel in the tourist area of Agdal, Ramadan felt a severe health disorder and called room service to ask for medical assistance. However, he died upon arriving to a private clinic. The public prosecutor in the Moroccan city of Marrakech ordered the autopsy of the body to know the real reasons leading to his death. The Egyptian ambassador to Morocco explained that the embassy is following up with the Moroccan authorities since the death of Ramadan and will pursue procedures to return his body home. Medical sources said that Ramadan felt stomach cramps before heading to the clinic where he died and directed blood samples to a medical laboratory in Casablanca to see if the death was caused by poisoning. The Egyptian expert had previously participated in official meetings with Arab environment ministers in 2014 and was tasked, along with other experts, in 2015 to study the potential effects of the nuclear reactors Bushehr in Iran and Dimona in Israel. The autopsy said that Ramadan died of a heart stroke. However, many observers the probability that the Egyptian scientist has been assassinated by the Israeli Mossad is very strong. In 2018, a new book written by Israeli investigative journalist Ronen Bergman titled "Rise and Kill First: The Secret History of Israel's Targeted Assassinations" was released. In the book, he referred to the Israeli assassination apparatus as the most robust streamlined assassination machine in history. In fact, nuclear scientists, in particular, are a real threat to Israel. For a country that is currently in a state of "nuclear ambiguity," that is, its possible possession of nuclear weapons has yet not been made clear, it would be dangerous to have an Arab neighbor with the same kind of weaponry. Every time these threads come around, people always talk about the big national conspiracies. I'll let you all in on a very rural town conspiracy. I graduated high school with a gentleman that would eventually become a cop. Kid came from a military family, was an avid gamer and D&D player, and was generally a great guy. I know he wanted to join the military like his father, but he was barred due to some weird physical condition he had. Instead of the military, he goes into the police department and becomes a local cop. He's still a pretty good guy, but you know how life goes on after HS. We talked less and less, etc. He even pulled my wife over once for a ticket, but let her go once he recognized her. His family was super proud of him as well. Suddenly, I received bad news from a buddy of mine. My cop friend committed suicide in his house once it was discovered he was apparently selling kiddie pornography. Other local cops surrounded his house. He sent his fiancée outside to surrender, and then turned his pistol on himself. It was sad, of course, and many people were upset in the local community. However, it never sat well with me. His family always contested the claims of kiddie porn too. The report stated they found a large amount of it on all of his computers and hard drives. My deceased friend loved building computers and had lots of parts. The local police seized all of his equipment. A fake, they never returned any of it. It would seem odd that someone so intelligent would be stupid enough to just download kiddie porn and place it on their hard drives. Perhaps he wasn't as smart as I thought, but it just never sat well with me. Furthermore, his partner that he was seen with suddenly disappeared from the public eye. Not a month after my friend committed suicide, this particular cop quit the force and just left town. To this day, no one knows where he went or why he disappeared. My buddy's family has tried to press the police department for information, but they never said anything beyond he doesn't want to be a cop anymore. Most people would argue that people leave jobs all the time, but this particular guy had lots of family here, including a wife and kids. He apparently just skipped town and sent divorce papers to his wife and then was never heard from again. It's never sat right with me, especially since my friend was so happy to be a cop. Maybe I completely just missed this side of him, or maybe I'm looking too deeply into this. But still, I think it's definitely weird how the timeline of events lined up. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing to see more Reddit reading videos. Have an awesome day.